I'm Batman.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I'm a doctor, but probably not the one you expect.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Welcome everyone to this special Geek This Week presentation. This is a new series called Geek Memories. We're looking back at sci-fi, comic book related shows and movies that we grew up on, and characters too. And for this inaugural edition, I thought no better than to look at the Fourth Doctor, since just this past week Tom Baker's final year as the Doctor was released on Blu-ray. So I figured we would talk about the Fourth Doctor. Tom Baker made his debut as the Fourth Doctor uncredited in the final scenes of John Pertwee's final serial as the Third Doctor, Planet of Spiders, which saw the Third Doctor battle the eight-legged psychic spiders on the planet Melbus 3. The Third Doctor suffers fatal radiation poisoning and returns to Earth several weeks later at Unit, where he succumbs to the radiation poisoning, and with the help of a projection of a fellow Time Lord, he regenerates into the Fourth Doctor, played by Tom Baker. Tom Baker would make his full appearance as the Fourth Doctor in his first serial story, Robot, which saw a director of a research institute use an experimental robot to steal the nuclear codes, launch codes of the world, and to blackmail the Earth's governments with them. This would start Tom Baker's run as the longest running Doctor, played the Doctor for 7 years. And through the 7 years, he's had several different companions along that way. Some of the more better known companions he had were Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Slandon. Sarah Jane Smith was the most popular companion throughout the entire classic series, and could even be said to eclipse modern era's companions Claire Oswell, Amy Pond, and Rose Tyler. Sarah Jane Smith was so popular, she later went on to get her own series that ran from 2007 to 2011. Among other companions of the Fourth Doctor was Leela, played by Louise Jameson. She was totally different from Sarah Jane Smith, as she was from a savage tribe on a distant world that hopped her way onto the TARDIS at the end of the serial, The Face of Evil. She and the Fourth Doctor would stay together until the Invasion of Time, when Louise Jameson would leave the series. Also during Leela's time, we were introduced to Canine, the Doctor's robotic dog, who was done the voice brilliantly by John Leeson. And the Canine would stay throughout the rest of Baker's run as the Fourth Doctor. We also were introduced to Romana, who was played first by Mary Tamm in the series that was a one story arc that is currently called The Key to Time. She would be succeeded in the role in the next season by Lana Ward, who had previously played Princess Astra in the Armageddon Factor in the finale of the Key to Time season. Lana Ward's version of Romana seemed to have better chemistry with Baker, and that might have to do with the fact that Baker and Ward fell in love during the filming of the serial City of Death. Now, the Fourth Doctor's next companions would come in the form of Adric, played by Matthew Waterhouse. He would stay with the Doctor until his final story. Also along the way, Alyssa and Tegan joined the Fourth Doctor as his final companions. Tom Baker would leave the role after playing it for 7 years in season 18, and his final story, Logopicus, I know I mispronounced that, I apologize, which sees the Doctor trying to repair the TARDIS and stumbling upon the Master's master plan, and has to try to stop him. And they finally have to the Doctor and the Master team together finally when they have to stop the universe from being teared up from the outside, and they must use a radio telescope on Earth called the Theros Project. The Master tries to double cross the Doctor, but the Doctor is able to stop his evil plans at the cost of his life. During this time, a mysterious figure called the Watcher has been seen throughout this story, and at the very end, as the Doctor lays dying, he simply says, "It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for." And the Watcher merges with the Fourth Doctor, and he regenerates into the Fifth Doctor, played by Peter Davison. I grew up on the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, because in the 70s, that's who he was. The Fourth Doctor dominated that era mostly. Also, PBS, when I was growing up, started airing, to the best of my memory, was the Fourth Doctor stories, and that's how I grew up on Doctor Who, was through Tom Baker. Tom Baker was my Doctor. One of the key things to understand why Tom Baker left the role after 7 years is there was a change in the guard. Graham Williams, who had been the producer, left and saw John Nathan Turner take over as producer of Doctor Who. Well, it appears that Tom Baker, who was known for being a difficult actor to work with, which he admits freely in several interviews he does, if you ever watch any of the documentaries on Doctor Who DVDs, him and John Nathan Turner butt heads on the direction of the show, and Baker finally decided it was time for him to go, so Tom Baker left the series. So, with that said, I like to talk about what I think are my favorite Doctor Who stories, and I'm going to start with Pyramid of Mars. Pyramid of Mars, for all intents and purposes, is just like watching an old Hammer movie. It was brilliantly done. I just loved the story. It was in the third season. It was actually the third story that aired. In 1911, an archaeologist, Professor Scalliman, excavates a pyramid and finds a door to a burial chamber that is named the Eye of Horus, which, unfortunately for him, kills him, and he is reanimated by the alien Sutek, who were in ancient times considered as gods, and they were the inspiration for ancient mythology. It turns out Sutek is imprisoned in a pyramid on the planet Mars, and he uses the reanimated Scalaman to build a rocket that will come to Mars to free him. The Doctor, along with Sarah Jane Smith, worked to stop Sutek from being released, as Sutek would destroy the world and all life. Like I said, this is a very brilliantly done story. The art direction, it just feels like you're watching a Hammer film. And that has to do with the producer, in my opinion, Philip Hinchcliffe. He has style to himself, and I think his vision gave it that gothic feel. And there's a lot more stories during his tenure as producer that I feel like has that gothic feel to it. So moving on, the next story that I want to talk about, and this is from Leela's time as a companion, played by Louise Jameson, and that is The Talons of Wing Ching. This sees the Doctor and Leela arrive in Victoria, England, where a series of murders are going on. And this is an interesting story because this is the only time that the Doctor is not seen, the Fourth Doctor is not seen with his iconic scarf. In this story, Tom Baker, as the Doctor, is dressed more like Sherlock Holmes. And this is the only time Leela is seen in an actual Victorian dress. This story also introduces two characters that would go on prominently in Big Finish Doctor Who stories, Professor Lightfoot and Henry Gordon Jango. In this story, the Doctor and Leela finds a series of murders, and they find out that the murders are being committed by a magician named Chang, who is actually taken the victims to his master, Wing Chang, who is Magnus Grill, an alien from the future who has been trapped in the past. And he's using the life force of these young victims to sustain his life force. And of course, the Doctor, once in trial, tries to foil his plans. This is a good serial. This is a 6-part serial that, like I said, it just has that Hammer horror feel to it. And I think it's brilliantly done, and it's one that I would recommend. Also, you can find this episode on BritBox, or you could purchase it on Vudu. It's one of the episodes that's available on there on Vudu to purchase. So, talking about another episode, and this is probably considered, in a lot of people's opinion, the Fourth Doctor's greatest story, to being Tom Baker's, and that is the Genesis of the Daleks. This 6-part serial gives the origin of the Daleks and introduces us to his creator, Davros, who would become a formidable Doctor Who villain throughout the classic series and would make its triumphant return during David Tennant's run as the 10th Doctor. This sees the Fourth Doctor being transported back in time along with Sarah Jane and Harry Sullivan by the Time Lords, who are instructing the Doctor to stop the creation of the Daleks to avoid a future where the Daleks rule the universe. In this story, he does not have his TARDIS. He is given a time ring that will return him back to his TARDIS once the mission is completed. Here we discovered the early stages of the generations-long war between the Thals and the Cardans, and that we would find that Davros is experimenting on his people, mutating them into what we would know as Daleks. It's a very good story, and it has a prominent scene where the Doctor is, all intents and purposes, ready to destroy the Daleks, but he has a conscious moment. Does he have the right to do this? If he does this make him any better than the Daleks? It's one of those great moments, and I think it's one of those scenes that defines Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor. So, I want to finish up with one other episode, and this is my favorite. If I had to say my top #1 favorite episode, and that is The Brain of Morbius. Basically, the Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith materialize in the TARDIS on the planet Karn, where the Doctor realizes that the Time Lords have once again diverted him in their plans to take care of their agenda. Soon, they discover that the Sisterhood of Karn, its eternal flame, is dying, and that they blame the Time Lords, and they believe the Time Lords are out for their elixir of life. Unknown to them, a mad scientist named Solon is using surgery and tissue transplant techniques as he's building a body to house the brain of one of the greatest criminal Time Lords, Morbius. Once this mad scientist Solon discovers that the Doctor is on Karn, he is single-mindedly to take the head of the Doctor to put the brain of Morbius in. Like I said, this story is got just a Hammer Gothic feel to it. And also there's elements in the story that would linger on throughout Doctor Who genre. The Sisterhood of Karn would make their return in the Webb's mini episode, The Night of the Doctor, where we see the regeneration of the 8th Doctor, played brilliantly by Paul McGann. Also, we would see the Sisterhood of Karn return during Peter Capaldi's run as the 12th Doctor. Also, this set up a lot of Paul McGann 8th Doctor stories in Big Finish audio dramas, The Vengeance of Morbius, where Morbius returns. So this is just, to me, one of the best episodes ever. So, in finishing, Tom Baker probably is one of the greatest doctors of all time, the 4th Doctor. Rarely gets beat out whenever there is a poll for the number one Doctor. I think he's only been beaten twice by David Tennant. It's that wit and charm of Tom Baker that makes the character work. And he's the Doctor that doesn't use violence to win the day. Wit, charm, and maybe a jelly baby. Well, guys, I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out all the other great content on the Geek This Week YouTube channel. And if you are a hardcore Doctor Who fan, don't forget to check out the Doctor Who panels, Peter Davison and Terry O'Malley. And then the other panel I have is Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Adler, the 7th Doctor and his companion Ace. Here in the upcoming weeks, I will be posting a panel of 2 Doctors, Peter Davison, the 5th Doctor, and Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor. For you guys, I hope you guys enjoy that. And I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another edition of Geek Memories. I will be, next thing I have coming up is a panel from Pensacon 2019, so be looking out for that. Thank you guys who subscribed. We're up to 140 subscribers. I really appreciate that. We're trying to build the channel up, so I appreciate it. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've gotten something up. I've had some things come up family matter wise that I had to take care of. But thank you guys for watching, and check back for great